So just a heads up before we jump into the review, this video is actually the exact same video that I uploaded just a couple of days ago. The only difference is this intro sequence that you're seeing right now, where I'm just going to let you know that you should definitely not use the magnetic stand because dbrand's already found that there's a problem with it, where it can affect some of the fans depending on what model of the Steam Deck that you have. So with all that being said, just know that no, you should not be using the magnetic stand for any reason. I'll go ahead and link more official information down below where you can see, dbrand's statement on the entire situation. But yeah, long story short, if you're an existing subscriber and you've already watched this video a couple of days ago, really no reason for you to watch it again unless you really want to. And if you're new here, just know that everything else that I said about the Killswitch case in the next 8 or 9 minutes or so for this video is still entirely true. Again, not including anything about the magnetic stand, because that can definitely cause issues for your Steam Deck. So with that out of the way, I'm just going to roll the original video right now. So dbrand messaged me on Twitter the other day with the most direct, to-the-point message ever. Send email address, have a thing you might be interested in. And because nothing bad ever came from giving out your personal information to a perfect stranger on the internet, I decided I would go ahead and comply with their demands. Mostly out of curiosity, but also a little bit fear, because I have seen what they were willing to do to a Steam Deck on their YouTube channel, and personally I just don't really want to get smothered in cheese by a robot. Probably. Anyways, I'm really glad that I did message them back, because what they ended up doing was sending me the very sleek, very functional case that you saw in those just shamelessly elaborate B-roll shots from the opening of this video. So after months of waiting and speculation about dbrand's Killswitch case for the Steam Deck, how is it? Well, that's what I wanted to talk about today, but first, before we get started, I would like to point out that no, dbrand did not send me a cartoonishly oversized bag of like Scrooge McDuck money or anything like that to make this video. However, that being said, dbrand, if you are watching this video, just know that I wouldn't mind if you sent me a cartoonishly oversized bag of Scrooge McDuck money. But all jokes aside, let's just go ahead and take a look at the Killswitch case, and honestly that's probably the best place to start because in truth, it really is a lot more than just a case for your Steam Deck. In the box they sent over to me, it included not just one, but 2 glass screen protectors, probably rationalizing there's a good chance you could screw one of them up. The teardown skin that goes on the front of the Steam Deck and also covers the touchpads, which honestly is probably my favorite skin that they have, second only to maybe the robot camo skin. And then finally the Killswitch case itself, which also came with a few additional components, including some stip grips for the top of your analog sticks, a rear kickstand that attaches magnetically, and as an extension of the protection offered by the Killswitch itself, it also came with the travel cover, which goes over the front part of your Steam Deck to make sure that it's well protected if you have to like chuck it in a backpack or something. Now depending on your needs and the version of the Killswitch that you buy, they may come with more or fewer components than what I'm outlining in this video, but nonetheless, let's just go ahead and take a look at each one of these components so that you're better informed in terms of, what actually comes with the Killswitch and what each piece will accomplish for you. Well, almost every component, because the truth is I've never really been big on screen protectors for my devices, so I didn't actually end up applying this to my Steam Deck, so I can't really speak to it, but from what I've seen in other videos online and other people's experience with it, apparently it's supposed to work like a champ. So instead, let's just go ahead and start with the teardown skin that was provided. And honestly, again, probably my favorite one that I'd seen so far, second only to that robot camo, which I also think just looks really, really nice. However, it does not include the entire case wrap for like, the back and every single piece of the Steam Deck, but honestly, that's probably fine because the front part's really going to be the most exposed piece anyways if you're going to be leaving it in the Killswitch case. So I think it's pretty nice actually that in addition to just having the protection of the Killswitch case, they also give you the option to customize a little bit and have, some visual flair on the front of the unit. Plus, it's definitely going to be a lot easier to install just these 4 pieces of vinyl that are included, because if you have to do the entire case, if you've ever seen this process done before or performed it yourself, you know that this process can be more than a little bit tricky. Thankfully, dbrand has a really helpful tutorial that shows you how to complete this part of the setup. Now I'll go ahead and link that in a card up here, but after about 10 minutes of some very careful hair drying work, I was able to get this applied without much issue. I think I might have had a crease in 1 or 2 spots on the edge, but the thing is it's not very noticeable even if you do have like a small air bubble or something like that, because 1, it's really glossy, or at least this particular skin was, and 2, once you finally get it, actually put into the Killswitch case to begin with, a lot of the edges really aren't visible anyways, so I wouldn't stress if you can't get it absolutely perfect. And I have to say, after finally getting it applied, that the pictures online really don't do it justice. Like, it does make the Steam Deck look really, really cool. Almost like my Steam Deck was on the verge of assimilation, which in a way it kind of was, because the next step after applying the skin is that then you have to go ahead and drop it into the Killswitch proper. So let's go ahead and talk about that a little bit. Now, getting your Steam Deck into the Killswitch case is pretty straightforward, and it feels pretty secure once you get it in there. You just want to start with the bottom at first, and then sort of angle it down so that you can pull the top part of the case over the Steam Deck. You'll have to pull in the triggers to make room for it to slide over, and then lift up on the top edge of the case just a little bit to get it over that ridge of the L1 and R1 buttons. But once that's done, you can go ahead and pull the rest of the case over the corners, and then you're pretty much good to go. Next up are the analog stick grips, which are probably the easiest part of this to install, because really you just have to push them on top of the analog stick, and the only thing you really have to worry about is looking underneath the analog stick to make sure it's not like rolled up on one side and that it actually did make it all the way around the contact point. And finally, the last piece, and probably the most important part of protecting your Steam Deck if you're going to be tossing it into a bag or something like that, would be the travel cover. And this is pretty easy to get on as well. You pretty much just start at the top, kind of positioning it over the analog sticks, and then just sort of snap it down over the front of the Steam Deck so that it kind of clips onto the bottom portion. And then to get the travel cover back off of your Steam Deck, you pretty much just do the same thing in reverse, where you pull on the clip at the bottom, and then just angle it up and pull it off. And then finally, the last piece of the setup, which really isn't about protection so much as it is like a convenience function, is that it does have that magnetic kickstand that's on the back of it. So now that we've done a rundown of all of the components that are part of the Killswitch experience, how I was actually using it, and what do I actually think about this device? Well, for starters, I've got to be honest, I've never been like the biggest fan of skins or form-fitting cases for devices like this, and it's not that I don't think they can make a device look good or that I don't appreciate the utility they offer, either in terms of just protection or improved functionality or something like that. It just seems like every time I would find an option that I thought would work, I would always end up taking it back out of the case because there would be some function or some weird way that I needed to use the device, where the case that I had it in just didn't really work that well. So even though everything that I'd read or seen about the Killswitch leading up to this point seemed like it would be interesting and, no pun intended, probably a great fit for a lot of players, it wasn't something that I personally was going to seek out. However, now that I've actually gotten some hands-on time with it, thanks to dbrand sending it over, I have to say I really, really like this device, and that's for a few key reasons. And the first reason is it's not super bulky, and it really doesn't feel that dissimilar than when I'm just playing the Steam Deck with no case on it at all. Now obviously it adds some extra weight and bulk to the device, but it's only a couple of millimeters, and it didn't significantly add to the Steam Deck's already large profile in any sort of way that really annoyed me. My personal test was whether or not it would still fit into the basic Amazon stand that I purchased months back that I use constantly for filming B-roll on the channel, and it actually added just enough thickness to the unit that it actually stands up better when I'm filming using that case. And speaking of stands, let's talk about that magnetic kickstand for a second. Now I would say if you're using this in like a tabletop capacity where you just want to rest your arms a little bit and have the system support itself, it does a pretty good job. And obviously if you're using with an external controller, it's also perfectly fine in making sure the screen stays upright so you can see what's going on in play. And I really didn't get the feeling at any point that it was just going to tumble over on its own or something like that, but I will say that the stand's not quite as sturdy as what you would get from the OLED Switch. Now it's definitely way better than the original Switch model's kickstand, which was incredibly flimsy and could snap off just incredibly easily, but it's also not stiff enough to provide you like a ton of different angles when you play. But it's definitely better suited to a more lean back angle like 110, 120 degrees, and not like a straight up and down angle if you're looking for something that's going to be more propped up and perpendicular to whatever surface you have it on. Now as far as the magnet goes that actually keeps this mechanism in place, it's pretty strong. It's not like MagSafe on an iPhone strong, but it's strong enough that I never felt for a second like it was just going to pop off because I didn't want it to, and honestly I kind of appreciated that, because if I did lean it back too far or apply too much pressure to the magnet, I liked that just the magnet was going to snap off rather than breaking the hinge mechanism entirely. Although they do have a pretty big warning on that when you first take it out of the case that says not to try to use that as a carry point. But what about when you're actually holding the Steam Deck in the case and you're not playing with it propped up for some tabletop action? Well, in addition to being peppered all over the housing with textured dots that really improve your grip, they also went the extra mile here with rubberized grip strips on the side that really make it stay in your hand securely. Now that might sound gimmicky, but if you've ever played the deck for an extended period where you're holding it up in front of your face, on a long enough timeline it can definitely start to slip out of your palms if you're playing like a frantic game, or if you're just like on the verge of passing out on your couch during a late night play session. It's kind of hard to describe what the texture feels like the grip strips on the side definitely feel kind of rubbery, I guess. But the rest of it, the coating, I can't quite describe what it feels like. It's like a super not abrasive sandpaper where you get like the grip and the texture, but you know, it's not uncomfortable. It doesn't feel like rough or abrasive in your hands or anything like that. And then the final piece, which I think is honestly my favorite, really is the travel cover. Now, prior to messing around with the Killswitch setup here, I'd really just used the original included carry case, which I still think looks pretty good, except that, I mean, to quote dbrand, it really is more like carrying a purse around. Like, sure, I could put the Steam Deck in there and then toss it into a backpack, but that really did chew up a lot of space on the inside of a bag, transporting it like that. In fact, trying to transport it safely this way, like inside of the original case, inside of another bag, was really just taking up so much space that I really didn't want to travel with it at all. Like, I'm going to be flying out to Austin in a few weeks, and I was fully intending not to take the Steam Deck with me because I didn't really feel like I had a great way to transport it that wouldn't just chew up like all of the space in a carry-on bag. But at this point, now that I have this, I think I'm going to reconsider and actually take this one with me. Now, dbrand's site touts like military-grade drop resistance for the Killswitch, and I gotta say they're probably right, because this thing feels like an absolute tank once you finally get your Steam Deck installed in it. Although that being said, I'm not in a hurry to do any drop tests with my Steam Deck, even with this case. Although I will say that if I had to do a drop test, I would definitely want to do it in this case over some of the other options that I've seen out there. So this is normally the part of a review or impressions video where I would go over like, you know, just minor gripes with the product or things that I just flat out didn't like about it. But really there's not a lot that I don't like about the Killswitch so far. I think that my biggest point of contention is just that, again, I wish that kickstand would be a little bit more stiff and have a little bit more flexibility for different angles. And the other thing that I thought I would have a problem with, even though it turned out to be really no issue at all, is I was kind of concerned that with the case being like this hard impact resistant plastic and everything, that the openings for the different ports that you need to access, like the micro SD card or the USB-C up top, would be harder to access, or you might have like a cable that's, you know, just got a weird shaped connector that you wouldn't be able to plug in anymore. But that has not been the case so far. And I was able to easily access the SD card slot and just, you know, plug in the USB-C cables that I normally use with my Steam Deck without any issues. So yeah, from everything that I've seen so far interacting with the Killswitch case, it seems like it's a really good option if you're looking for solid protection that's not going to take up a ton of space around the perimeter of your Steam Deck, and also give you a little bit of flair too if you want to, you know, apply one of the skins that you can pick up from the dbrand store as well. But hey, what about you? Is the Killswitch something you'd be interested in for your deck? If so, let me know in the comments below, and I'll go ahead and drop links down there where you can go ahead and find it over on dbrand's website, and also a link to the tutorial video that I have if you're having any issues with the installation or something like that. As always, thanks for taking the time out of your day to watch videos on this channel. I really, really appreciate it, and dbrand, thanks for sending over the Killswitch a few days early so I can get some hands-on time with it. So have an amazing day, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.